Thank you, Anand, for joining us today. You are the EVP and business head at Eko Financial Services, which has been amongst the pioneers in the fintech industry in India. You have two decades primarily in telecom industry before you shifted to fintech about 5 years back. You bring a lot of operations experience. You were a COO at Sterlite Networks, and now you are leading the business for Eco. Help us understand what Eco Financial Services is about.
Thanks, Amit. First of all, for having me here. So, Eco is predominantly, if you look at Eco, is basically a tech player in the market, right? And we basically work in the financial space. And one of the core things about Eco is that Eco is basically a wallet player who typically works on a B2B space rather than B2C space. So, players like probably a Paytm works on a B2C space, whereas Eco typically works on a B2B space. And I think one of the key things about Eco was that we realized that there is a huge segment of blue-collar workers, migrant laborers, who really do not have access to any of the financial products, and there's a huge segment at the bottom of the pyramid. And how do you really offer tech solutions, especially in the financial space, to these customers? And if you really look at a set of customers, a customer is somebody who probably earns anywhere between 10,000 and 50,000 rupees in cash, who typically wants to predominantly wants to send back money home, who wants financial products like lending and loans in terms of insurance and all of that. And I think that's what we typically focus on, offering financial products to this particular segment of customers.
Okay, that's great. So these are primarily around remittances of migrant workers you might see who do not have access to the financial system.
Yes.
So has that got impacted with the Jan Dhan and the payment bank model which came about 2 3 years back? How did that impact your business?
Predominantly, ours is basically, if you really look at, if I talk about remittances today, it focuses primarily on sending money cash into bank accounts, right? So any increase in bank account is always welcome because it always ensures that you have so much of penetration of bank accounts and people are able to send back money home into their bank accounts. What we also realize that the kind of people segment that we work with are not need some kind of assistance in terms of doing the banking, right? They probably still not very comfortable in, let's say, doing a net banking today, right? So they need somebody to assist them to send, let's say, use their net banking or send money into the bank account. And I think that's where we come into play, right? So as long as we're able to offer convenience, we're able to offer speed, and we're able to offer trust to the end customer, he's more than happy to use an assisted model of banking through us. So that's where we come in and offer an assisted model of banking to our set of customers.
So yeah, you have been a pioneer in this bottom of the pyramid fintech segment. So tell me, Anand, as a business head, what are your current responsibilities?
So as a business head, I think it encompasses the entire functions in the business, which includes right from sales to customer operations to engineering to product, to the entire set of business operation that works under, right? Because in a segment like ours, I think what's very important is to also ensure that we bring in the right set of products, be very innovative in what we approach to the marketplace, and at the same time also have the length and breadth of distribution. So I think it encompasses everything across. And actually, I manage the entire scope of business.
You mentioned distribution, and you have a deep background in telecom. What we realize is that fintech players have had a liking for professionals from the telecom industry. Can you help us understand why?
I think if you really look at the kind of distribution network that fintech has evolved, right? Especially in terms of it's very similar to what telecom evolved. And we all know telecom probably, the way I look at it, is probably one of the most successful businesses that evolved in the last about 2 decades, especially where we had from zero penetration to probably the 70% penetration in India. And I don't think there's any other product in India with such a huge amount of penetration and impacted people's life. And if you look at fintech today, I believe fintech is very similar to where telecom was, let's say, about 10-15 years back, where it was just in a nascent stage and there's hardly any penetration levels. And so is in financial products. where there's hardly any penetration levels. A huge amount of opportunity lying there. And one of the big things I believe there is in terms of the distribution network, right? And the distribution is very similar to what really went in telecom. But I think more than distribution, I think the difference, the way I would look at it, the difference is between telecom and fintech. I believe fintech is more of a tech game, right? When I say it's a tech game, because it's a lot of, I see a lot of innovations, I see a lot of new things that really come up, and the way fintech is changing, the way new the new kind of systems are coming in place. Maybe UPI, let's say, just the latest one on the board. Though, so I think the ability for even for the organizations to change at a rapid scale, right? I think telecom, you didn't see such a rapid change happening, right? You did have systems in process, you had distribution network, and telecom did work the way it worked. But I think fintech kind of the kind of change that's happening in fintech. It's very, very dynamic and very, very fast. So I think so it's a much it's similar to telecom, but also it's very fast paced than telecom is.
Okay.
So that's what the difference is.
Okay. For our audience, what does distribution actually imply, and how are they different between these two sectors, fintech and telecom?
See, fintech and differently fintech and telecom, I think the basic fundamentals remain the same. You got a distributor, you got merchants in place, right? I think the basic fundamentals remains the same. I think what differentiates here is the amount of money that gets invested, right? So in terms of telecom, the amount is not very huge, but in terms of remittances, for example, the amount is very huge. I mean, probably if you really look at the kind of turnovers that many of the organizations like ours does, is probably 100 crores a day. So the amount of turnover is very, very huge. So for a partner to manage and handle cash is a big differentiator, which is probably in telecom. It doesn't manage such amount of cash, right? And secondly, in telecom, there is still some kind of inventory levels, right? I mean, you probably at some time, if you really look at the peak of telecom, you would have handsets, or you would have prepaid vouchers, you would some amount of material that, some kind of logistic that needs to be done. Whereas in terms of remittances, is purely the logistics of cash, nothing else apart from that. Everything is digital apart from that, right? But yeah, the basic distributor and merchant remains the same, but the way they operate probably is slightly different.
So does that pose kind of a special risk to the distribution model because of the movement of cash?
It does, yes, it does. Because even at the distributor level, it's very important that every person who works with him has to be trustworthy, his credentials are in place. Whereas in telecom distribution, I don't think there's so much of a check needed in terms of, because it's not, any given time he's not going to carry so much of cash, right? But yes, in terms of distribution, it's a much detailed and focused. I think it's a much more detailed kind of you really need to look at distribution very, very closely. It just doesn't work otherwise.
All right, interesting. So how does a typical day look like?
So asking you, the COVID days or before the COVID days, I'm sure the days have all changed,
Give us an average view.
So I think, if you really look at the pre-COVID days, it was more of business expansion. It was more of, working on new products and services. It's more about expansion, right? And I think a typical day would predominantly be more of working on many of these aspects of businesses, a lot of focus, especially on innovation, because I think what fintech does is that it allows you to, because I think what's critical in fintech is especially for you to innovate things better, right? For example, there is a solution, a UPI solution. The question is, how do you innovate? How do you ensure that it is easier to use? How do you ensure that it is, it is very user friendly? How do you ensure that it creates an excitement somebody is using it? So I think so a lot of work goes in brainstorming, in innovation, in trying to bring out products which are specific to a segment, in trying because as I said earlier, that this segment is very, it's a very segment is a huge opportunity. So if you really look at it, what would really well sell in the product is probably a sachet kind of a product. So if you want to do a sachet kind of a product, then it's very important that you get the product right. You ensure that it attracts to a set of customers that you're working with, and there are no benchmarks available as of now, right? So it's all about you need to try and test some of these products that you and services that you need to offer. So I think that's what is more exciting, and that's what predominantly takes a huge amount of part of a day. as long as you've ensured the distribution in place, your other operations are in place. And I think, and we put a lot of focus in ensuring that we spend a lot of time innovating what we're trying to do.
Okay. Say if we were to look at it from a stakeholder perspective, who all are your stakeholders and what percentage of time would you be spending with each one of them, be it internal, external?
So I think if you really look at the amount of time that typically would go in working with the stakeholders, I think today it is close to about 50-50%, 50% internal stakeholders, 50% external stakeholders. The reason why I'm saying is because it's very important for us to be on the top of the game in trying to understand what's really happening, what's the new invention that are coming in, what the new product and service that are coming in. So it involves talking to a lot of players in the marketplace, right? And maybe banks, players, players like NPCI, players like industry bodies like BCFI, industry body like PCI, and some of these guys. So at least at my level, I believe 50% of the time is largely on external stakeholders, right? And 50% time is what I spend really on the internal stakeholders. So that's how typically, my day works out.
Okay. Let's come to hiring decisions. If you were to hire for a next in line, a regional business head or a vertical business head, how would you evaluate the candidate?
Well, I mean, the way I looked at, especially the fintech space, is that one is that the basic understanding and knowledge is very important for sure, right? So I think you would typically have a good basic understanding and knowledge of the business that we typically would want to do. But I think more important to that, since this industry is very dynamic, it's very important that you have an attitude to change. When I say attitude to change, you have an ability at the right time to unlearn and relearn things that are required as per the changing times. So I think apart from the basic understanding and knowledge of the business that we do, I think I really look at somebody who comes with the right set of attitude, a guy who probably has an ability to take on change, ability to change himself, change the way we do business, because what is right today may not be right tomorrow, right? So it's very important that you accept it, that there's going to be change. You unlearn, you relearn, and I think that's what's more important. So I think we give a lot of focus in the right attitude of a person who's coming in and who has an ability to be flexible to change. I think that's what, apart from the basic understanding knowledge of the job that requires to be done, is what we really look at. One of the questions that really ask everybody on whenever I have an interview is to say, who's your role model apart from your parents? And I've always seen that a role model actually tells you a lot about who the candidate is all about, right? What does he really appreciate in life? What is he really looking at? And how much, and what is hunger for growth, right? And I think these are some of the things that are very critical that we look apart from qualifications and understanding of business and all this stuff. And this really differentiates a candidate from each other.
Okay. Is there any other additional ability that will be evaluated if somebody is applying for a business head?
See, as I said, even in today's time, as I said, the way the fintech industry is evolving, it's very dynamic in the way it's evolving, right? And for classic example, I would say that when I joined, let's say Eko, our the way we used to do marketing and the way we used to do digital marketing now is like poles apart, right? In terms of the way it's evolved so much, right? So I think it's just one example, right? Where our earlier, let's say, our focus used to be more in terms of saying, how do I really get person on the field and really go and get that merchant onboarded. But today, I think the large focus also is to say, how do I attract him online? How do I really ensure that I've created enough amount of content which is there available, which allows him to, and how do I ensure that he's onboarded into my system, right? So I think the dynamics have changed, right? So I think and I think anybody who comes in, let's assume that the next guy would probably come in with a larger understanding of some of these things, right? I mean, probably we have learned it in the business, but I think if somebody comes in with the added understanding of some of this, it becomes an added advantage to really get to some of these roles.
One last question. How do you look at the fintech industry evolving over the next 5 years?
Amit, as I mentioned, I think fintech is at the same space which telecom was, let's say, 10, 15 years back. Right? and there's a huge amount of opportunity. And you see a digital payment, you see the amount of scope. We really appreciate RBI has been very active here. NPCI is very active in the kind of products and services they offer. So I think the entire ecosystem is really. I mean, you may probably see today probably the big name, right, from a Google Pay to an Amazon Pay to WhatsApp Pay. I think all of them are all gunning on the payment space today. So I really see that this space really doing. I think this is the industry which is which is on the boom phase. I think the next 10 years of this industry is really going to be on a growth phase, because huge amount of opportunity there, huge amount of requirement in the marketplace, especially in segments that we work with, and especially in the overall segment I'm talking about. Many penetrations and many of the products, maybe the insurance, or loans, or lending, very minuscule. So I think huge opportunity, and I strongly believe the next 10 years is going to be a decade of fintech. It's going to be finance. It's a decade of payments in India, and I think that's what is going to differentiate us big time.
Okay, thank you so much, Anand, for spending time with us and helping out our audience in their career journey. Thank you so much. You have a good day.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for having me.